Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this, series with Liberty Latin America today. My name is Gokul. I work at Katalon, and I'm the solution engineering head here at Katalon. So I'm here with Shikha and Maurice, who help head the QA division across Liberty Latin America. So thank you, Shikha, and thank you, Maurice, for joining the conversation today. So, Shikha and Maurice, welcome to the conversation today. And we're going to talk about Catalan and Liberty Latin America and how you've implemented Catalan, the story that you've had with us. Kind of go through your journey personally in the testing space, and I'm curious to learn about your overall experience. So, very nice to meet you both, and thank you for taking the time and speaking with us today. If you don't mind, quickly introduce yourself. Start with Shikha, and then we'll follow with Maurice.
Yeah, thanks, Gokul. It's a pleasure and honor to be part of this session. I'll quickly give a background about Liberty Latin America as to what we do. We are a leading communications company, a telecommunications company with operations in the entire Caribbean regions, Chile, Puerto Rico, and other parts of Latin America. And the communications and entertainment services that we offer to our residential and business customers include video, broadband, internet, telephony, and mobile services. Regarding myself, I've been part of, initially, so there are many companies, sub companies, as I mentioned, we have operations in these different regions. So, cable and wireless in the Caribbean region. Then we have BTC, Flow, Cable Tika, T-Mobile. So these are about our brands. So my journey with cable and wireless started in 2014, which is approximately
Long time. Yeah.
yeah. And in overall, I have around 16 years of experience in testing, out of which 14 years is primarily on the test automation.
It's fantastic. Great to hear your experience and to get to know more about Liberty Latin America. Seems like you have a pretty good business out there in the Caribbean region. We have all, being in the United States, right? We have all heard about some large brands, and I think this is pretty new in terms of the business and the market that you're supporting. That's pretty cool to hear, right?
Yeah, and I would like to add here, recently we have, I know in US we talk about AT&T. So we have our operations in Puerto Rico, and we have recently acquired AT&T in Puerto Rico. So we are, the acquisition is complete. Now we are building a completely new IT stack for Puerto Rico.
That is awesome. That's great to hear. So Maurice, if you wanted to quickly introduce yourself, and we can dive right in.
Yeah, sure. I'm Maurice Walle, and I have, I think, in QA, I have a 4 years experience, but before that, I have a lot of experience in development, specifically web development. And I actually made the step to QA a couple of years ago, and started working a lot with a new team in the company at the time, UTS. And we started trying to automate stuff as much as possible because we were a very small team of about 3 or 4 people. So it was very difficult to, continue on with the way of testing, using everything, doing everything manually. So we quickly switched to using other tools. At that time, we actually started using Katalon also, but mostly the free version. But we were also using UiPath and these other tools also. To try and automate a lot of the things that we had going at the time. So that was a cool experience. And then I moved to the QA team. I know I have the role QA manager in the team of Shikha, and that's been going pretty cool. We've been doing a lot of nice things, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a minute. That's about it for me.
Awesome. Hey, Just on that same topic, right, Shikha, you'd mentioned you have close to about a couple of decades of experience in the testing space. Um, I wanted to understand your journey, right? Like, where did you start? How did things used to be in the past, and like, how things change today? What's that transition look like? That entire story. I guess even within Liberty Latin America and previous experience, would really help.
Yeah, so I think I started my testing journey back in 2000 and 2006 with Sapient, where we were the testing provider for one of the again biggest telecom US-based telecom provider called Sprint. I started with the manual testing as an experience, like as a trainee, I jumped into the testing world, writing the scripts. I learned a lot about the content management systems, etc., in that journey. But then, with the volume of test cases which we had to do manually at that stage itself, I realized that it's a pretty tedious task, and the automation is a very important piece of it. So I realized that then and there. We can't. I with my team, we started with uh, just learning about how automation works during that time. But then at that time, during the middle of the whole execution, we didn't within that the sprint retail side of things, we didn't introduce automation much then. But then I moved my journey towards from telecom into the insurance domain. I worked with Pfizer, which is, again, one of the financial institution based out of US, but my experience, I worked there in India. There, I think I got a lot of opportunity. They were building a product from scratch, where it was a SOA based architecture, and I got an opportunity to get my hands dirty in the automation world, using IBM tools. At that time, it was called Rational Functional Tester, where I actually did some coding. We learned about a lot of integrating IBM Rational Functional Tester with unit testing. How the J units are embedded into the rational functional testing, and then the whole concept of agile was starting at that stage. I'm talking a decade back. So now at that time, I got an opportunity to actually be embedded part of how Scrum looks like, and what's more important for the QA team when you are embedded in the agile processes, that it's really regression that should be automated, or really it's a progression that should be automated. So that was the journey where I really gets my hands on automation. And then from there I moved to another company, again based in India, which is called Inter IT. But there I got an opportunity to work with VMware, as one of my customer. And again, I learned from telecom to insurance, and now this was core IT, where I got a flavor of how do you automate spinning up VMs, and then testing the functionality, or the system level, the operating system level of automation, automating the scripts which help the IT engineers spinning up VMs. So that was a different flavor completely. So, that was then. Then, after VMware, I got an opportunity to work with Entity America. Started with telecom, and then back to telecom. Entity America, where they were again building their CRMs from scratch, and it was SOA based architecture. From in that assignment, you know, I was leading pretty much the API testing, and at that part of assignment, my role was how do I ensure that the APIs which are being built, and they were more like open APIs, like, they can be consumed anywhere, like Google's of the world, so that was a flavor. And, that couldn't happen without automation.
Yeah.
So, that's how my journey was started. And now again, back to cable and wireless, from Entity America, still in the telecom domain. I had to implement the testing framework from the scratch, I'm talking about 7 years back.
Yeah.
Where, I got an opportunity to build the basics of testing first, and then how we bring in automation on the legacy systems. So when I joined Cable and Wireless, and now I'm part of actually Liberty Latin America, overseeing the rest of the operations. The importance was how do I show the value of automation to the business, like people who are doing the user acceptance testing, manually writing or generating data. You have here's number of use cases. It was difficult, and then with one of our partners, we started our automation journey here with Selenium, just to show what automation means.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I figured it out that just having a couple of people will not help promote the adoption of automation. Otherwise, you will always be dependent on a couple of people who are skilled on writing the scripts, and it will not add a lot of value. From an ROI perspective, you are just then building the capacity to write that script.
Exactly.
And then it's not basically adding any value to if you need people. It's not a business value. Basically, if you need capacity to save some capacity, then pretty much you're not getting anything.
Yeah.
So that's where the journey. I thought of looking for a solution which can help promote adoption of automation, and people understand the value and how it can save time.
Yeah.
So that's how we started to look at. Now the world has changed. We are all talking from legacy systems. We are moving towards cloud-based system where the platforms are available, but they are also, it's codeless scripting world is the trend these days, I would say. Mm-hmm. So how, we have to switch our gears. We also, from an automation perspective, we need to look for tools, number one, which allows, easy adaptation for the testers to learn, which shows them that it is, adding value, and there should not be people coming and say, oh, it requires me X amount of time to build the scripts. I better do it manually.
Yeah.
So,
use that a lot of people use, indeed.
Exactly. So we were looking for the tool which enable that, codeless scripting frameworks. and which can help show value to the business, and also to me as a leader, to say that it's really bringing value. We don't need to add a skill set per se to benefits to one community.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So that's where we started we did a DevOps maturity assessment, which was also a need of the hour to change some of the working culture within the organization, how QA can be engaged up front. So we did that assessment, and as part of the assessment, this was one of the tool which was proposed, and hence we jumped into adoption of Katalon. We started very small with I think just 25 licenses, and we picked up the journey.
Yeah. Hey, that's a fantastic way of explaining your experience, right? You've done all the way from API testing to legacy applications to infrastructure testing, kind of the entire gamut of testing, right? And then now slowly moving from manual to automation, and trying to see if you can shift left and shift right within the organization. We'll talk about that for a second. Hold that thought. Maurice, I know you are doing a lot of the actual automation work within Liberty Latin America. Tell me, what are some of the challenges that you face or used to face before implementing an automation tool, right? There's definitely a lot of resistance that we see with our customers, and when we talk to customers, internally people have, like Shikha actually mentioned, right? Like, if it's going to take a lot of work to build the script, I might as well do it manually. Right?
Exactly.
So give me some stories on what you've seen, and your thoughts around it, and how you overcame those challenges.
Yeah, I think it's very funny that you put it that way, because when I was listening to Shikha, also she gave a very good way of actually embodying what I actually do now. Because I have a team of about 3 people, and as she says, it's not the idea to keep adding people, to get that skill set. The idea is to make sure that it becomes some sort of, it spreads, right? The automation bug actually spreads, right, throughout the organization. Make sure that everybody starts doing it, not just because we tell them to do it, because that's one of the reasons that they're not going to do it, but because they want to do it. And I think we're kind of trying to become the ambassador for these people that are saying, it's going to take too much time. We actually sit down with them, and we speak to them, and we say, okay, what are the things that you're facing, and then you actually go along and you listen to their problems, and based on the problems you say, you know what, let's zoom in on this a little bit, and we'll say, okay, if this takes you about half an hour to do, let us show you that within 5 minutes we've done that in 2 minutes. And then they're like, whoa, and that's the way that you actually get them on board on these types of things. And I think a very important thing is to add also, because Katalon is so easy and so simple to use, it's really intuitive for people to get started quickly. The only thing that you do have to keep in mind, and that's, I think, why our role is so important, is to keep managing, let's say, that process, right? To make sure that things are done in a structured manner, because it's very handy that you can quickly automate things, but it's even better if you can reuse, right? So I think that is a very important key aspect. So that's the reason why we also feel like we're kind of like the consulting branch in the automation section, and then we help them and we guide them, and then make sure, because as you know, I mean, anything that you do, there are 1,000 ways to do it. But then if you give somebody a bit of a structure, it means that everybody can reuse the same thing. And that's where we were trying to go with this entire process. And we're actually setting up a lot of trainings and those types of things to make sure that, the people that get onboarded, they can go through the process and figure out how a lot of these things on themselves. And then if they have anything that they still need, they can always reach out to us for us to help them out. Then coming back to your question, I think there are a lot of things that you run into. I think the first thing that you guys mentioned, that's logical. And then I kind of explained how we deal with that. But another thing that, a lot of people also use as an excuse, apart from, let's say, it takes too long, I don't have the time, is that they don't know how, right? And that they don't know how, we can actually address with the trainings, but still, how do you say, they need that help in the sense to figure out what are the tools, what are the frameworks, what are the things that they need to be able to do this. And we try to cultivate this culture where you get intrigued. Let's use that word in the sense to figure things out. And then by starting with small little projects, you'll spark that creativity in everybody's mind for them to continue on and do as much as possible with this tool set that we currently have.
Maurice, that's great, right? Like good to know about your experience and overall understanding. What are the challenges that testers face in the transition to automation. Like we say, it's automation's not magic. I think we need champions like you within organizations who would make that magic happen, right? It's easy to say, hey, we are a tool, we come in and just, do magic and next day everything happens. But I think there is a process and the people that's behind that's really important on top of the technology, which I think you have. And you've shown the leadership for your team, and continuous coaching and continuous feedback is really an important part in that learning journey, right? I can provide so many other videos to learn, but it's totally up to the person to actually capture that and move forward with that journey, right? I think that's and you being there as a champion for us is really helpful in driving that adoption. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then switching gears a little bit, Shikha, one of the terms that keeps coming up is shifting left and shifting right, and maybe overused term in the industry, right? What is your thought on shifting left and shifting right, and how have you adopted those? I guess it's the terminology, but how have you made sure your applications are delivered in a much quicker fashion without any bugs, right? I think that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. So our vision on shifting left, right? So what we are looking from an LLA perspective is how we can bring the development teams, which are on the left of the QA, to be, working with the QA team on the same framework and with the same tool. So at the moment, the starting point is we are bringing more and more development teams. Like, as I said, we are building a new IT stack. So our goal is on the shift left, that how we can have the development teams who are writing the code, they are part of the testing framework. Like, they are using the same tools. As an example, if we are using Katalon for API, then we would prefer that, the same tool is being used for their unit test cases or their, a single level API testing, instead of using Postman or any other tool from SmartBeer. There are plenty of tools available. So that's one goal which we have as a team here in Liberty Latin America. The other aspect is, where we want to get there on the shift left is how do we have the development community embrace more and more the culture of unit testing, right? So that's where this DevOps role, thing comes very important, where we have the common code repository. So where we are checking in our scripts in Bitbucket, as an example, we want the development teams to be checking in their code, their code, and as well as their build and deployment process following the same tool. So going back to the same, on the shift left, our goal is how we bring the development teams to the same practices, so the same tool set, so that we can have more integrated, dev and QA working model rather than working in silos. So that's what we are looking from shift left.
Yeah, it's all about collaboration, right? And making sure you're
Exactly.
working together. And it's not two different teams that are not talking to each other, right? At the end of the
Correct.
day, if Maurice and you don't understand what the application development stages are, or vice versa, it doesn't work out, right? It's
Correct.
all about communication and people.
Indeed,
And
we could save a lot of time by that, right? We could save a lot of time by just making sure that we're all on the same page, using the same tools and using the same pipeline.
yeah.
Exactly.
And going back to the championship model, which we talked about, before. So within LLA, we are bringing the concept of building an automation community where, there is testers, like, they have a role to play in that community where they're focused more on learning automation. But then you have people from the development community who are, who has the skill on the build and deployment process, building pipelines, etc. But they are part of the same community so that they can bring in the best practices. So that's what we are, moving towards on the shift left.
That's awesome. So I guess on that same topic, what do you think, plays the CI/CD process or the DevOps process, right? How does that play a part in the testing lifecycle? And maybe it's for Maurice or both of you to answer, but I think,
Yeah,
yeah. So
I'll take a stab at it. So the continuous integration process, it comprises of how the development teams are managing their source codes, right? How there's source code management, then how do the version control? It could be data, it could be configurations, and it could be database scripts. That's the continuous integration. What tools they are using? Is it Bitbucket to check in, or name any?
GitLab.
GitLab, name any. There's plenty.
yeah,
And then how that code is built in, and we are looking more at the end to end. It's not specific to one application, but we are looking more end to end. Like if there, 5 systems included, how does that continuous integration work for the end to end, including all 5 systems and not just one system? That's the continuous integration piece. Now, as part of that continuous integration piece, what we are looking from an automation perspective is how does the unit test cases get invoked? How is the coverage of those unit test cases get measured? And then this is the basics as part of the continuous integration. Then is the continuous deployment, which is where we say, how that packages which were built or checked in, how are they getting deployed to various environments? And as they are getting deployed to the various environments, how are the functional test cases which are being built and automated using the test automation team, how are they being picked up from the same repository?
yeah.
So that's what we are aiming from deploying this CI/CD process.
And do you think that you have reached a level of maturity that a lot of organizations would strive for?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Not yet. So the first step, and it's due to, as I said, we are a diverse organization. We have all flavors of stack, like legacy and the new modern, applications like Salesforce, MuleSoft coming into the play. But our goal is to get there, we become mature. So it's a baby step. So baby step, first step is we have selected the tools. We did the assessment. We have selected the tools. We are now on our way with forming the community of champions, both from shift left, both from development as well as on the operations, including the testing, and have this CICD process more mature as the community on the automation side gets mature.
Indeed, and currently we're focusing a lot on, let's say, making sure that we have a lot of test scripts available. I think we have over 5,000 test scripts available in Katalon, written only across the board. And the beauty of it is we're migrating bit by bit to start using test ops as, let's say, the deployment tool for this. And the intention is initially right now to have, let's say, a way to do a lot of regression tests on the systems, as a singular. And then on the long run, we're going to start experimenting with actually, cross-system, tests that are getting executed via test ops, so that if, let's say, the journey starts at system A and it ends in system C, that the entire journey can be tested throughout, one test ops project that actually runs all the tests in sequence. And then at the end, you would know exactly how everything went. So that's where we want to get. We're not there yet, but we're making baby steps, and we're as far as making sure that we have all our stuff in code repositories now. We actually are able to execute a big amount of the tests directly from test ops now. And bit by bit, we're going to move towards that space where we can actually do things across the systems. That's actually the nirvana we want to eventually get to. I think we spoke about this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think everything is a journey, like I said earlier, right? It doesn't happen in one day. And glad that you have taken the journey and, gone towards it. And a lot of people have hesitations towards it.
Mm-hmm.
And the first step is taking the effort and putting the effort in, and the results will pay for itself over the long term. So I guess in terms of, Maurice, your special projects within the organization, right? I know you have done a lot of contribution for our products in Katalon itself, and worked on some extensions on your own side time. So if you want to talk about that, that will give all of our customers some inspiration to do that while they're doing their projects.
Yeah, so when we did actually the migration of all of our code, it was actually initially stored in SharePoint, and we migrated all of our code to Bitbucket. We actually saw that there was a gap that were not able to actually just search through this code, right? You have to imagine this is a couple of years of people developing stuff, and how do you go through this and figure out what you need, right? So firstly, we kind of tried to structure it in a manner that we would know what kind of system each test case belongs to. But then still, there are quite a few test cases in a specific repository. How do you exactly find what you're looking for? So we basically built this little system that actually pulls all the repositories and indexes them, and gives you the ability to actually search through them and see exactly what you're trying to find, right? Because the structure within our repositories is pretty neat. So if you're looking for something specific to a system or from a specific opco, you could actually find all the test cases in one nice little overview. And apart from that, it also actually keeps track of all the commits that are happening. So we can basically keep track of how the development teams are actually committing to our repositories. And as you know, if you have, let's say, Bitbucket or any of these big, nice packages, it's very great that you can track things, but you can only track things from, let's say, the view of a repository. You can't go above and beyond, right? You can't say, okay, what is the view for all repositories? And that's basically what we did. We created something that we could actually see all the details that we need from that perspective. And I know also that I think the first thing that Shikha said to me when we started working, she's like, Maurice, every week I have a headache. I have a headache because people keep complaining that it's very difficult to get test data. And I think you know this. I mean, it's always an issue trying to get the data you need to execute tests that are for existing users or whatever that you need in a system. You need to ask somebody for it, or you have to get a Jira ticket created, and it takes forever for you to get that information for you to get started. We actually took that step because we said, there are a lot of tools available, but the annoying thing is, the thing that sets us apart, let's put it that way, is that we have a lot of systems, right? And all of these systems, you have certain are legacy systems, certain are, how do you say, newer systems, but most of them, the basis of them, where the data is stored is Oracle, right? It's an Oracle database. And we thought, you know what, let's create something where we can actually query these databases and retrieve the test data and allow somebody to actually do this manually, so or themselves, right? So we
A
actually went in.
self-service model, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah, exactly. Self-service, how do you say, test data retrieval system. That's basically what we we called it. And you could go in, you could select the type of test data that you need from the territory that you need, because as Shikha said, we cross a lot of opcos and a lot of territories, and you could just retrieve that test data. Currently, we integrated it with one of the major systems, and we're in the process of integrating it with two more that will cover, I think, about 80 to 90% of all the systems that we currently are testing. So we also built it in a way that we try to focus on making sure that we can actually reach that nirvana we were talking about earlier, by setting it up in an API. So you're actually able to query the system and get your test data directly. And this week, we're actually working on that integration in Katalon, to make sure that you would be able to send, let's say, an API request via Katalon, retrieve your test data, and then continue on with the remaining steps. Because I think, Gokul, in Katalon, you have these beautiful ways of managing test data, but that's when you have it. And let's say in 2 weeks, or maybe even in an hour, that might be stale data. So if we could achieve this bit where we're just hitting an API and then eventually getting that data and continuing on the process, that's another step in making sure that that entire process is automated. And on top of that, we actually realized that a lot of the stuff that we're changing or testing, we could actually validate that from the database also. So a next step would be to actually broaden that API so that you could at the end confirm if indeed the change that you wanted happened. So then you have the entire process from start to finish automated, no manual intervention needed.
It's fantastic. So what you are talking about is a searchable API-based test data automation
Yep.
plugin that you've created.
Yeah, more or less for Katalon. Yeah, indeed.
So I think you could take it and productize it for other customers to use, right? And I think it's a fantastic story. There's a huge community of Katalon users, 10,000 plus, I would say, who are part of the community and consistently contribute, plugins like this, ideas like this, or feature requests, right? Like to the product management team. Because without these kinds of users, we started as a free platform, right? 4 or 5 years ago. And I think we have gotten to a point where, there's a lot of enterprise customers using this and they're asking for additional features, right? And I think that's where, people like you can come in and add some of these ideas and things that you created would go a really long way. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome, Google. But I want to thank you guys also, because throughout the process, the journey was pretty cool, because I always had support from you guys. It was always like, hey, we don't have this yet. Let's figure out a way. And a couple of months later, you guys actually deployed certain things to, facilitate a lot of issues that we were having initially. So I like that, that quick response that you guys always have. I think you guys are a pretty young team also. Everybody's eager to, get this done, and everybody's, always looking into helping each other out. And that's what we have to be about, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. And I think one question I had was around test ops, right? That as Katalon grows, we want to evolve into a platform that supports the tester's end-to-end life cycle, right?
Okay.
Starting from authoring to management to analytics to execution. And to that effect, we have launched 2 different products in the last year or so, which is Test Ops and Test Cloud. And I know you are an early adopter into Test Ops at this point. And we do have Test Cloud, which is the execution engine for, multiple browsers and multiple desktop types, that kind of thing. So what's your experience with Test Ops so far?
No, it's pretty cool. I think you guys, I think it was the logical how do you say evolution for what you guys needed to, you know, work on. And I think we actually did quite a few demos with desktops. We actually created a few demos where we could actually display the entire execution cycle from actually how do you say pulling the code from a Bitbucket and making adaptations in Katalon, pushing it back to Bitbucket, pulling it back into desktops, running an execution, scheduling it as you want, using both actually the how do you say the Catalan agent, which you would set up on your machine. But now we also have the same thing, and we actually demoed this also to the management team. The difference between when you're using Test Cloud, and I think Test Cloud is a very nice product because it will really, you know, make it much easier to do, especially all the regression testing that you need to do. You don't
Right.
have to set up a lot of things. You just make sure that you know have your tunnels running, and you just click and you execute. And at the end of the day, you can just make it run even in the, you know, at night, and you're
Yeah.
pretty sure that it's going to be okay
It's the
because
ease
as
of
long as
scheduling, the ease of execution. Yeah.
exactly,
You
and
don't
it's
have to
not
depend
dependent
on
on
an
your machine.
environment. You don't have to put a request and
Yeah.
wait for it forever, you know.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. And we actually started before that trying to make our own type of test cloud solution by using an RDP, setting up an agent on there. But then every once in a while, that would actually, you know, that would not work out all too well. And then, you know, with this solution, it's pretty cool. The only thing that we did see is we do have a few legacy systems where they did the automation based on coordinates. So I think that that's not currently supported yet for Test Cloud because it, and that makes sense, right?
It's
Because
an
you have to
infant
make sure
product
that,
at
you
this
know,
point,
the
right?
screen is a proper size, and it comes with a lot of complications. But then again, you know, some of these systems we're looking into maybe getting someone to replace them, but then again, that also takes time and money, so you still want to be able to support them. So in the meantime, we're still using the agent to do that. And I also saw that we were having some issues with Internet Explorer support, and we had some discussions back and forth. You guys said, hey, I think Edge might be able to solve the problem. You guys are deploying quite soon also in a patch for that so that we could use Edge in Internet Explorer mode. So these things are all very cool things that that we need to be able to continue doing all the automation testing that we're currently working on.
Hey, that's great to hear. And thank you for passing the feedback and having that conversation back and forth. Really helps us improve the product overall. Shikha, one last question for you, right? You know, if you were to quantify the amount of savings, you know, you've been using this for some time. Um, just wanted to get your thoughts, right? Like if you were to quantify, you know, would you say in terms of percentage, what is the level of savings that you've taken in terms of time? I guess in terms of cost, you know, you don't have to be specific on numbers, but I think if you can give us an idea, that would be fantastic.
Yeah. So I think we started this, as I said, March of last year. It was, you know, we just purchased the license, and from March and I think until September of last year, out of 25 licenses, if I see, it were only 5 or 10 which were used, right? The real adoption, I think, happened when I got Maurice to help me with just, you know, focus and drive, you know, have a dedicated focus on driving the the roadmap which we have from an LLA perspective, and also you know, building this championship community. So we are still in the process of you know, streamlining some of the whole end-to-end benchmarking process, I would say, so that we are in a better position to measure. But with the 5,000 test cases which we have automated so far, you know, on some of the regression test cases which we already have on certain platforms, I think I can easily see average saving of 100 hours per week. You know,
That,
man hours. So,
yeah,
which
that's
is
a
which
great
is
start, right? Yeah, I think for using this lesser than a year and going back to my point around championing, and it's important to have someone who can actually take charge and lead the project and help the others gain knowledge. Because, like I said, automation is not a one-day thing. Like a lot of people say, it's not magic, right? And it takes time and it takes effort. And thank you for taking that effort.
And I think it's not only, the other perception which industry has is automation is about just automating the functional test cases.
Right.
Usually people overlook the automation of the processes, and the people try to bring more and more and more tools, which in fact complicates the process. So one
Right.
of the goals which we are, and Maurice is, as he said, with the special projects he has worked with you guys, one of the key thing which we are looking is how we can have minimal tools. That's why, you see the integration with Katalon and Atlassian, so
Yeah.
that even if the desktop's being used, for all the analytics, how does it feedbacks to the main test management system, so that even people don't have to update that manually. So that's also automation. It's not a functional test
That's
case,
right.
but it's the process, automation in the process. So I
That
think
takes a lot of time.
that takes a lot of time. So I think
Yeah.
we
And
have
if you
achieved,
have Yeah,
yeah,
and if you have 15 different vendors doing the same thing, you're only adding more layers and complications to the same process, right? You're then automating the tool set, then you're hiring
exactly.
people to automate the tools. It's like, it just gets overly complicated a lot of times. And like you said, keeping it simple sometimes makes it easy. And of course, dependent on scenarios, but I think, to an extent, keeping it simple works a lot of times.
Yeah,
Um,
minimal tools
yeah,
but with solid integrations, I would say.
exactly. And so I guess to wrap up this conversation, thank you so much for taking the time, both of you, and sharing the overall experience that you've had with Katalon. And we, look forward to having this as a mutually growing journey for both of us, and where you grow in your maturity curve and we drive along with you and help improve our products to support you, right? Most important for us is customers and taking care of our customers. So this is a really good conversation. This is one among the few that I've started doing in the recent past, and continue to do more of these. So people get to learn about, journeys in general. It need not be specifically about Katalon, but it could be about just the test automation journey, right? That's what I'm focused on with this series. So thank you so much for taking your time and spending this 30 minutes with me today.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much. Thanks for all the support. And I think let's keep on innovating together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Maurice. Thank you, Shikha. Pleasure
Thank
talking to
you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.